Hola a todos, 大家好，我是Yuxi. Volevo condividere le mie esperienze di studiare le lingue straniere. 動画を最後まで見てくれたら本当にウキウキになります。謝谢大家。对。
How did you become fluent in all of these different languages?
I was born and raised in China, so Chinese is my mother tongue. And I learned English at school. And after that, I started to learn Japanese since I entered my undergraduate school in China. And 3 years ago, I started to learn Italian on my own. And 1 year ago, I started to learn Spanish porque es muy similar con italiano.
Could you share your approach, your secrets to learning all of these languages?
Yeah, actually, I have 3 points to learn this language. The first point is to enjoy the process of learning languages. In order to achieve something, you need to be consistent. It's not only applicable for learning languages. And in order to make it consistent, in order for yourself to stick to the habits, you need to make the process more enjoyable. I try to combine my passion, my interest with learning languages. For example, I really enjoy novels. So I read a lot of novels in English. So what I did is to try to find like Italian and Japanese versions of these novels, and I read them in like those languages that I want to improve. So in that way, I don't feel get frustrated if I like come upon some words that I don't know, some grammar I'm not familiar with, because I'm interested in this book. So I always get motivated to finish the book too.
Wow, so you read novels in the languages you want to learn. Isn't that quite tough?
Yeah, it's kind of tough, but the thing is, I have already read them in English. So when you try to read them in your target language, it's not that hard anymore because you already know the plot. Yeah, you were more focused on the language itself.
Yeah, it's interesting because for you it was novels. For me, it was actually, we're in Japan now, it was Nintendo. I played the original Pokemon games in English, of course. While I was doing my GCSEs, A-levels, and even university level French and Spanish, I would sometimes play the games in Spanish or French. My friends would say, you're just playing games. Like, stop wasting time, study. It's a form of study, right? Because you're immersing yourself in the language, and even in the Pokemon world. At the start, just learning to read in English, how did you gain the confidence to do that? Because you were in China at that time, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it will connect to my second point of learning language, which is to get as much inputs as possible, even if it's at the very early stage of your language learning. So for English, of course, in China, we all have English classes, but they basically just teach you grammar. So after school, I also did a lot of like extensive reading and intensive reading. I try to listen a lot of different materials, so get a lot of inputs. I think that's really important to get yourself as much inputs as possible.
Could you give some concrete examples then? What do you mean by input?
Listening a lot and also reading a lot. If you don't listen to how people speak in this language, you will never know how to speak it in real life. And also reading as well. I find it really efficient because you are learning these vocabularies and grammars with the context. So if you are reading books, there is a context, so it's easier for you to memorize this words and grammar than simply just try to force yourself to like memorize those vocabulary from a textbook.
What Yusi's really highlighted there is how having a combined approach of written, academic kind of literature, that combined with practical use of the language is really going to help you excel. Compared to if I only focus on spoken language, you'll be fine in the convenience store or ordering food because you know those essential phrases. But when people start to have deeper conversations or in other areas of life where you might have to read some documents, it's going to be difficult. So I like that the input wasn't only focused on listening, it's reading and listening.
How did you improve your accent? Have you ever done shadowing?
Yeah, I have done a lot of shadowing before English and with my Italian. So what I did is to watch some YouTube videos, pick up a YouTuber that you're really interested in, like to imitate what they say line by line. When they say a sentence, you pause it and to like read after them because there are subtitles, so it's easy to learn from the YouTube videos. I find it's quite helpful.
And how do you get feedback on that? Do you record yourself?
Yeah, sometimes I do record my speaking with my phone. And one thing I noticed is that sometimes when you listen back to your what you have said, it's really different from what you think you're actually saying. So there are a lot of mistakes and there are a lot of pauses. So you do have to listen to what you have already said with the recording.
Sometimes you got to target, and Jack's helping me with this in the gym, find your weaknesses. So if you know you're good at speaking, but you're not as good as reading, try and highlight that area. If you learn some of these like idioms, proverbs, kind of the old style of the language, they're going to be so happy. I'm so happy that you have that you have taken interest in my culture. Italiano no è una lingua bella, è una lingua bellissima.
Bellissima, esattamente. Sì, sì. Usi la mano. Usi la
Exactly.
mano.
But that's it, you know, as he said, right? Using the hands. Language, wow, you highlighted a deep thing there. Language is more than just what's written down. It's part of the culture. And if you appreciate that side of Italian or whatever language it is, earlier I was laughing because Jack said, Hajime mashite, and he bowed.
Yeah,
you know,
that's so Japanese.
That's it, because you're embracing the whole culture at the same time. It's very impressive that you were able to get to C1, and congratulazione.
Grazie mille.
You just got the C1 certificate. How did you get to that so quickly through self-study without ever going to Italy?
I don't know why, but I feel really connected with this language, this culture. So I feel really motivated when I try to learn Italian. First of all, I watched a movie called Call Me By Your Name. It was set up in Italy. And I was like, wow, it's an amazing country. È bellissimo. And the language is so beautiful. Like the first time when I hear Italian, I was amazed. And I was like, I gotta study this language or I will regret later in my life. So first of all, I went to a language school, but I went there for like 2 months to study the basics. And later on, I studied Italian basically on my own. So what I did is, like I said before, I get a lot of inputs. Even if I was only at an elementary level, I tried to look for like reading materials that was designed for beginners. So I got really a sense of satisfaction whenever I find out, oh, I finished one short story in Italian, even if I was a beginner. So that keeps my motivation high. Like I can say before, it's important to develop balanced skills when it comes to learning languages. So I try to have like conversational practice every week with my tutor. Even if I was like only a beginner, I try to do that. Really consistent. I have done that for like 2 years.
If you haven't seen our other episodes with polyglots, there's a lot of similarities to what Yuxi is saying here. But Dawn is a Korean who learned Chinese at a young age. For her, it was a TV series. So for you, it was a movie. Yeah. For Dawn, it was a TV series. For me, it was Pokemon. So that's it. You've all found that passion, basically. And what you mentioned about elementary stories, Daria also mentioned that she would read Thai kids' stories.
So you speak every week with a tutor in Italian. When you were learning it, how often did you speak with a tutor? And has that changed now that you have reached a higher level? Do you have to speak the same amount, or how does it work?
I think the frequency I like practice my conversation was quite stable. I basically was 1 hour to 2 hours every week. I think that's enough, sufficient for maintain your language skills. Every time after my tutoring class, conversation class, I will write down like the feedback, the mistakes I have made, or some expressions I learned from the class on a notebook. So whenever I have some free time, I will try to review the notebook. Yeah, just to make full use of my free time.
To someone who's starting from scratch, you can self-study to a certain extent, but the grammar and just learning that kind of mathematical and logical side really helps if you've got someone teaching you formally. Once you've got those building blocks and the foundations, then you can have fun and freestyle and have that back and forth. The benefit of having a native speaker, I feel like that really forces you to imitate the natural way that people speak. I used to work in a language school for many years, and some of the students, they would come to London. They had British teachers, but then all of the classmates were English as a second language, international students. So what would happen is you would get Korean students learning the incorrect English from an Arab student. They would learn each other's mistakes, unfortunately. And that's the danger. Of course, you should always practice, But
True.
if you have got access to native speakers, and as you said, online now,
Yeah, that's
you can
better.
even have these conversations, you're going to feel a lot more confident. And even if you're listening to native speakers, whether it's on YouTube with the Evolve podcast or any other media out there, make sure you really try and absorb that as much as you can.
So you mentioned 3 points, but so far we've heard 2. Don't keep us waiting, man.
Okay, so the third point is to make languages really a part of your life, to build up the habits of learning languages like every day. I don't know if you guys know about this book. It's called Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great book.
It's really inspirational. One of the takeaways I get from this book is the habit stacking, which means if you want to truly build up sustainable habits in your life, you need to stack these habits on your current existent habits. So for me, I'm currently learning Spanish, and I'm working right now, so I don't find much time like to learn languages every day. Every day when I take a bath, I will try to like take a Spanish reading. So I read there like for 10 or 20 minutes. So it's called like habit stacking. I find that quite useful when it comes to language learning. And also when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is always to turn on the podcast in Italian to get myself like familiarized with the language a little bit. So it's really like incorporated into your daily routine. So that's your language learning will become like effortless, I guess.
So Italian is like your breakfast.
Yeah.
For lunch, you have a bit of Spanish.
That. Yeah. Different language.
And Japanese is just all day.
All day. Yeah, main meal, main dish.
Once you incorporate it into the routine, you're not thinking about it anymore. If I have to eat a meal on my own, I will watch a YouTuber either speaking like Punjabi or Urdu. So there's a British Pakistani YouTuber who mixes English and Punjabi a lot. Urfi Ali, shout out to Urfi because he's keeping my Punjabi. I'm learning new words all the time through him. Bod maze. So, yeah. So let's be honest. Do I really want to like study grammar while I'm eating my dinner? That's fun,
too
right?
much.
So you got to find what works for you. And also there's a French YouTuber called Isma. So while I'm eating, I'm picking up all their like kind of day-to-day conversation. And I realize like you pick up words that, for example, the French viewers here, they can comment. I don't know how formal or informal this is, but when they're eating, they always say, c'est une dinguerie. So maybe someone who speaks French can let us know. Having a Chinese background, was it really difficult to learn languages with a completely different structure?
Yeah, it was quite hard for me at first for learning Italian because it's harder than English, I guess, because each verb, they have several conjugations. So you have to memorize the conjugations for each verb. So that takes a lot of time for me to get familiar with. I'm Chinese, and in Japanese, there are a lot of kanji. So it was quite easy for me. Even if I don't know Japanese, I can read Japanese since I'm a Chinese. But for Italian, it's a totally different language. But I think it's worthwhile to take the time to learn this beautiful language. Vale la pena.
Vale la pena.
Vale la pena.
Is that Italian also? I know in Spanish that means
it's the same. It's the same.
Is that Italian as well?
True. Vale la pena.
That's why learning Latin languages is a cheat code. Because they're so similar. Yeah. What message would you give to someone who doesn't have the opportunity yet to travel?
I think, of course, if you can have the chance to live in that country and get yourself immersed in the like environment, it's definitely helpful. But it doesn't mean that if you don't have the chance to go to live in that country, you cannot learn the language well. I think it's like 100% possible to master a language even if you don't get to live in that country. Language learning can be fun. Like Hakim say, it can be singing a song, it can be watching dramas, there are different ways of learning languages. They are all part of our learning process.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
شو اسمك؟
أنا اسمي يوسي. أنا صيني. أنا بتكلم شوية عربي.
ممتاز. أنا علمت اللغة العربية في جامعة في لندن. بس شلون تعرف اللغة العربية؟
كوندوفير مصر. شكرا حبيبي. شكرا حبيبي. 谢谢大家就是观看今天的视频，我希望这次视频对你们有帮助。就是不要忘记点赞、评论和 订阅这个频道。Ciao a tutti, grazie per averci accompagnato fino alla fine di questo video e spero che questo video vi sia piaciuto e sia utile per il vostro apprendimento delle lingue straniere. Ci vediamo la prossima volta. 皆さん最後まで聞いてくれてありがとうございます。と一緒に楽しく外国語を勉強しましょう。Gracias por ver este video. Nos vemos pronto. Ciao, ciao.
Guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for your support. For similar content, check out our other videos with other polyglots, and we'll see you in the next one.